Do you see my screen?
Yes, it's already started, so you can go ahead.
Okay, then I think we need to start.
It has started.
Okay, thank you very much, everyone, for joining. We are very glad to have you here because we only have 1.5 hours for this, so we need to get started. At first, we need to look at the program. We are starting right now, just a few introductions and a few housekeeping, but here is the program. Then in the next 5 minutes, Anne will give some remarks on, give an overview on targeting and upscaling innovations in agricultural systems. Then I'll do a demo session. Then we'll have immediately afterwards, we'll have 2 presenters who've been able to use the tool, showing what they've been able to do. Then we'll have a Q&A session. Then some remarks and maybe a way forward after this. A few housekeeping. Today's webinar will be scheduled to last 1.5 hours, like I mentioned, including the Q&A. The recording and the slides, we hope to send this via email after the webinar. Then again, all the participants will be muted to enable the speakers to present without interruption. If you have any question during the webinar, you can submit them on the chat box at any time. There's someone who will be taking care of that. Then when the time comes for the Q&A, you need to raise your hand for it to be unmuted, for you to ask your question. And please, if you can just state your name and to whom you are addressing the question to. And please, you should be very clear and conscious. So those are just a few housekeeping, and we are hoping to have a wonderful interaction. Thank you. So I'll just move on to the presenter, who is Anne. So Anne, maybe you can proceed. You can just share your screen and proceed.
And hello, good morning, everybody. So my name is Notenbaert. I'm working for the Alliance of Bioversity International and CIAT, the hosts of this webinar. So welcome, everybody. Before I dive into a little bit of introduction, just to set the context of why we started developing these targeting tools that are the topic of the webinar today. I just have to confirm if you're actually seeing my screen. Can somebody tell me? Okay, so I'm assuming
I can see it.
Screen. Okay, perfect. Do you see the slides in presentation mode, or?
No, it's not on presentation mode. Maybe, oh, okay, just now, yeah, it is.
Okay, okay, perfect. So good. So as I said, I'm just it's just a few slides to just get our head around, like, why are we making or using or trying to make you know that we have these targeting tools. It's really in the context of agricultural development. And I think the most important thing to keep in mind, and I think most people who work in agriculture and are trying to improve the productivity or the profitability or the environmental sustainability of agricultural systems are very much aware that there is a huge heterogeneity in agricultural systems, both in biophysical terms and in socioeconomic terms. So we have, for example, areas where it's very humid, versus very dry. The soil conditions are different. Temperature is different, but it's not only biophysical, it's also socioeconomic. Some people have very small land areas, are very far from the markets, where others are really very well connected to markets, have maybe access to off-farm income. So there is a huge heterogeneity. So if you want to promote interventions, this heterogeneity has to be kept in mind, because it really influences in a big time if the interventions you're looking at are suitable and if they're adoptable. And it also influences their impact if and when they would be adopted. So if you're planning an intervention in agricultural systems, it's really very important that you think about those local contexts. And then there is one activity that we call spatial targeting that comes into mind. It's really having a look at, so we have many different practices and technologies that could be implemented, and there is obviously no one-fit-all solution because they are all suitable in different contexts. So spatial targeting is now the activity of matching those practices or technologies with the local context. And we are using typically a GIS system for that, where you really describe your technology in terms of the conditions that favor their successful implementation, and you match that with the spatially referenced database or a GIS database. And a kind of quite typical, oh, sorry, there is one slide that's skipped. Typical GIS application is then a suitability map. And this is then a map that actually shows those geographical areas or those locations where a specific strategy is likely to be suitable and have a positive impact. But it's not only, so you don't only always come with a specific intervention you want to implement in a certain place. Oftentimes in our type of work, we have tried out, we have piloted certain interventions, and now we also want to try and see, and we've seen this has a positive impact on livelihoods, on incomes, maybe on environmental issues. And then we also want to actually bring this to scale. I think a lot of talk in our world is like we have to bring this to scale. So we also want to be able to actually find places where our lessons that we've learned in a few piloting sites will also be applicable. So that's what we call outscaling, which is slightly different from upscaling. Upscaling is expanding and adapting, but is more of a policy process, whereas outscaling is really a geographical process, from moving from one place or from a few places to many more different geographical areas. And that's why we developed this toolbox, the targeting toolbox, which actually has two major tools. So one is what we really call the targeting tool, which makes the suitability maps. So it kind of helps you identifying areas where a specific strategy is likely to have a positive impact. But it also helps you in outscaling. So that's the outscaling tool, and that tool produces similarity maps. So it's actually a map that indicates the wider applicability of the intervention. So it starts from a few locations and then finds in our geographical space similar places. And then I called it Two Tools Plus, because there is also the characterization tool. So once you have made those maps, there is also a tool that helps you calculating some statistics about those areas. For example, how large is now this area that is suitable or that is similar, how many people live there, what is the average rainfall. So the characterization tool then helps you producing a table with those statistics. So we will hear a lot more and see actually how these two tools work. But just maybe I'm jumping the gun a little bit. Maybe this is also something for the discussion at the end. But anyway, some food for thought already. So as I already mentioned, so it's all about location. These tools we are presenting today. But location is not only biophysical, it is also socioeconomic, and it's therefore really important to also take the socioeconomic reality or context into account. And although there is lots of advances in geographic data, so more and more really good data is available in the form of maps, still the socioeconomic data is much more scarce, it's much more difficult to get a handle on, but we have tried to provide some socioeconomic factors, and I think it's important to keep that in mind. Then there is also another issue that is very important, and I think in our current context with global environmental change, climate change, changing economic conditions, it is also important to start thinking, like when you look at data, so it is often for a certain time period, and it's often very important to also look at how the trend has been or how the future is likely to be. So again, you will see once you start using the tool that we've tried to provide a few data layers that also capture some dynamics. And then importantly, so the tool will help you for geographical targeting. So it will give you some locations where where a certain technology is, for example, likely to have a positive impact, but it still hides a lot of heterogeneity. So you will see areas that are been mapped as suitable or not suitable. But of course, within those areas, there is still always heterogeneity, and also not only within a geographical area in geographic sense, but also you will always deal eventually with people, and there are obviously also differences at household level. So there is always a process beyond making the maps of also doing some household level targeting. Those last were just a few foods for thought for you to keep in mind, but I think I want to hand it over now back to John so he can show you what the tools actually do, how it works, and I hope you will enjoy that. Thanks for your attention. John, we don't.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Anne. So I'll now move forward to just give you a preview of what we've been able to develop and the tool we're introducing to you. The tool, like you've had Anne giving an overview, it's actually available online using this link. Just type in targetingtools.cia.cjr.org. And this is the landing page. There's an about button here whereby you can actually learn a little bit some more. Tells you that it's a set of tools available on through three ways: desktop, web, and server. And it has three tools. It's actually a toolbox, so it has three tools: the land similarity, the land suitability, the land statistics. And ideally, the tools were developed with the aim of identifying land is suitable for certain interventions based on user criteria. Next to the about button, there are the tool features. I think much more has been spoken by Anne. But just to tell you, the first one is the land suitability, which matches the suitability criteria with a spatial database to create suitability maps. Then the land similarity, ideally, like I said, it estimates the potential for scaling using socio-ecological characterization and similarity analysis. Then finally, you can actually do statistics based on the outputs of the first two tools. Next to that, there is a Get Tools. If you click on that, currently it will tell you that it's available as a web application, but also you can actually download the tool as a Python toolbox. So you can actually download it and install it on your ArcGIS desktop. But maybe and that is for those who have some experience on GIS. But on the web application, the tool runs on all the geoprocessing tools from any modern web, so Chrome, Internet Explorer, and Firefox. Then we've been able to pre-process some input data for easy and fast execution. So you don't need to come with anything like data sets for you to use the tool. Then if you have some data, you can actually upload user data to be used as input data for the tools. But most importantly, that you can actually download the outputs from within the interface. But like you'll see much later is that you can actually even visualize your outputs on the interface, and actually your results are available through email. If you choose to use the Python toolbox, it can run all the geoprocessing from the ArcGIS desktop. Requires user data as input data because, like you've had, we've just been able to package input data and is available in the web application. So for you to use the Python toolbox, you need to prepare your own data. You again don't require internet. You'll require a spatial analyst extension to be enabled. And again, you need to install R because some of the resources actually use R software. Then you'll need S3 10.3 and above to run it. Next to that, there's some documentation. So if you click on either of these, for example, land suitability, it will open up a very nice documentation that a step-by-step guide for you to use. And this is what we'll be doing right now in the next few minutes for you to run some of those processes. Then finally, there is a contact whereby if you run into problems, you can actually write to this email here. But largely the team is sitting here in Nairobi. So we'll get to the demo for this session. I'll do the web application. So just click on web application. And it opens this interface with this viewer. So just to let you know what's happening is that the tools are available on the bottom left, the land suitability, the land similarity, and the land statistics. So I'll just take you through the three tools, starting with the land suitability. So you just need to click on it, and it opens this dialog box. Then for start, you'll need to choose your input data. And what's available right now, there's an Africa folder, an Asia folder, but there's also a global folder. The data is actually available at a global scale. So you need to click on that. Then down there, this is a required field, so you need to select the data you need to run. So for example, if I get a simple example like the work we do here as a tropical forages team, we work on forages of feed for livestock. So, for example, you as a user, you might be looking at places. You might be looking at places whereby you need to try out new forage varieties. So, for example, I'll give you an example like Napier, which is very old, but there are some new varieties which are coming in, like Brachiaria, which is very high in in protein content. It's all good for livestock. Actually increases milk production. You need to test where that brachiaria can actually do well if that's the type of question you want to answer. So another thing you need to ask yourself is what type of data sets that I need. So for example, you need some information on precipitation. You'll also need some information on temperature, because for that variety you are trying to promote, or you're trying to look at where it can do best. You already have information on where, or on what temperature, what's the minimum and the maximum temperatures that variety can actually do well. You also have some information again on the minimum and the maximum, like you need this amount of range for that variety to do well. There are a range of data sets, but if you also look at on the side of soil, you need some fertile soil. So we provided you with organic carbon data. We also need some information. You need to look. You need to understand the soils for particular areas. So you need some information on soil pH, for example. You also need information on the length of growing period, like how many days are available for crops to grow. So we also provided you with an LGP, the length of growing period, which is available in days. So if you can just look at those few data sets, and for example, if we choose our example, which was brachiaria type of forage variety, and if that variety does well in areas above, like for example, 700 millimeters. Some noise I am, so let me just close my window. Okay, so this is the information I was trying to provide. This is Brachiaria mulatto. We know through research that the grass is able to do well in areas of minimum temperature of 15 and a maximum of 24.6. The precipitation should be a minimum of 700 millimeters and a maximum of 26.15. The length of growing period should be 168 days. 168 days to the 365 days. Then the elevation, it does well from 0 meters above sea level to 1,800 meters above sea level. The pH, the soil should be a pH of 4.6 to 8. Then the soil organic carbon should be not below 10. But a lot of fertility is not a problem to this variety. So if we go back to our tool, we said the precipitation should be 700 to 2,615. The temperature should be 15 to 26.5, 24.6. The organic carbon should be 10 and as much as it is available. Then the soil pH should be 4.6 to 8. Then the length of growing period, the number of days available for crop growth should be above 168 to the end of the year. So that is we call this the thresholds for this crop variety to grow. So we are ideally looking for areas whereby which meet this criteria. And now you're actually able to type in the criteria in these boxes. Down there, you can actually constrain the analysis to a particular area of interest, and we've provided capabilities whereby you can actually draw on the map. You can draw on the map. You can select a layer. But if you have actually data on your computer, you can actually upload your data, your boundary. So for this case, we are going to upload our data, and the data should actually be uploaded as a spatial data set. So this should be a shapefile, all these shapefiles, and the data which comes with a vector layer should be zipped together and uploaded. So like you see, our area of interest is Ethiopia. And we have our analysis actually ready. So for this, the data can actually be, the output can actually be delivered in your email. So I just type in my email in there, and I click on run. So what is actually doing? The algorithms are running behind the scene, and once it's complete, we expect that the output should be visualized on the viewer here, and as well, I also expect an email from the application. Just to repeat as this runs through, if you have any question, you can just type in your questions on the chat. But by the end of this, we'll be having a Q&A. Again, the tool is actually available for free, so you can use it as it is. You don't need to subscribe in anywhere. But just below the email there, we've because the development is ongoing, you can subscribe to our blog, and the thing you'll be doing is you'll actually be able to be receiving if there's any update on the tool, and if there's any trainings, online training scheduled, that's where the information will be scheduled on. And if we do any enhancements to the application, we'll be sharing through our blog. So I've already received an email that my analysis is ready. So what is happening right now is actually preparing the data for publishing on the interface on the map viewer. Just to repeat, you have some required fields. This is very important. You need to choose your input data, and you need also to have your thresholds ready. Yeah, so the analysis has just been completed. Like you will see here, there's a download button, which is available once the process is complete. So if I click here, it will download again the same output on my computer. Again, I received an email already of the same output, but the good thing is that you can actually visualize your results on the fly, and you'll have a legend on the side. So you can actually see areas in green. Those are very highly suitable areas, and areas in orange, these are the very low suitable areas. Remember, we were doing this for Brachiaria mulato. It's a forage variety. So that is just one of the uses. You can do models for as many crops as possible. So I'll just go forward to do the next analysis. If you have any question, you can just type it in the chat box. So I'll move into the land similarity. And this land similarity, where it's already has been explained here, you are looking for opportunities for scaling technology that has already been tested. So, for example, if again the Bracharia mulatto, you already tested it in a research facility somewhere on the open field. So you already know where that technology has actually been able to be successful. But you actually don't know areas whereby the same technology has a probability of giving the same results. So here again, you need your data, and we've already supplied the data. Again, we go with the precipitation layer, the elevation layer. If again, you also need to look at areas whereby you have similar organic carbon contents, areas whereby the soil pH is not so different, and maybe finally areas whereby the length of growing period matches your reference point. Again, for this tool, you can just click on the map to drop a point of your reference points. Those are areas whereby you tested your technology and it worked very well. But also, if you have data available on your computer, you can actually upload it as a zip shapefile. So here I'm going to upload. So these are demo points whereby we've tested this the technology, and it worked very fine. You have an optional tab here. You can actually restrict the analysis to your area of interest. For this case, I'll choose another area of interest. Then, for this, you will realize the area of interest now we are looking at Tanzania. And this is the 2 points you see here. This is where the technology worked very well. So that is as much as you need to run this. The required fields are ready. This is you don't need to do this, but this is optional. You need to restrict it. Because once again you run this for the whole group, again you'll be tasking the server. Of course, you'll get some results, but you'll have tasked the server a little bit. Then you can type in. I just type in my email address there to get the results. Just to mention again, you can subscribe to this. Here you just need to your name. You can type in your email, which organization you work for. What we also need some information on your position and how frequent you need to be receiving our news. And you just click on run. Yeah. So as that happens, maybe if there is anyone who has a question, you can just proceed on and ask. Just raise your hand, because this one is going to take a little bit of some time. Maybe we can now take in some questions as this one runs. Okay, go on, Christine. You need to unmute yourself. Go on, Christine. Okay, we can't hear you, so maybe you can just type in your question on the chat. Okay, go on, Betty McKenna.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes, we hear you very well.
Okay, that was a nice tool. It's really great work for CIAT, especially the fact that the tool can be used by non-expert to make decision. I think this is a very good and a great step. But then I had a question on the use of the tool. Sorry for the background noise. So I had a question on the use of the tool, and one of my concern was how can the tool be used to incorporate the forecast information whereby I can make decision on real time, especially for those working in a humanitarian organization. Maybe they would want to know what kind of interventions to make on agricultural livelihoods based on forecast information. Over.
Any other question? I'm not able to.
John, can you hear me?
Yes, go on, David.
Now, thank you for the demo, and it's a great tool. But I know Anne mentioned there's a lot of heterogeneity that is hidden within the tool. How low can you go? I know we have looked at Ethiopia, we looked at Tanzania. How low can you go? I work in Western Kenya, and I know even within the same county, there'll be a lot of differences. How low can you go with the tool in terms of the geographical area you are covering?
Okay, thank you. Any other question? I can take in another question as we. Emily, go on.
Hi, John. Thank you for the presentation. I just was asking, do you have documentation on the data sources for the raster layers that you're using in terms of the resolution and the sites, the sources of where you've where you've gotten the data? Thank you. Over.
Okay. Okay, thank you very much. Those are good questions. Maybe I can just respond to this, but again, just to mention, our analysis is ready, but I'll just respond to this. The first one was, can the tool be used for using forecast data? Yes, there's no limitation for this. Right now, we've not incorporated any forecast data, but actually, if you have some data available on your computer, you can just download the Python Toolbox and you just run the analysis. That is, if you have access to ArcGIS, you can run the analysis on your desktop. About heterogeneity, yes, just to mention that data is available at 1 kilometer as of now, but again, the desktop version gives you a lot of capabilities. You can run this analysis on at a very fine scale. Just depends on how fine your data is. Then finally, documentation on the data sources. Yes, the data as the metadata is available. This is you can actually see this on the geoprocessing services. But that is a good question. Maybe it will also be a very nice opportunity to actually have a short section on each and every other data set that we've been able to provide, and that will be available in the blog. So moving forward, this is our output here. Remember, we chose 2 points. We chose 2 points, one on the east and one on the left. And this, when you see on the side here, there are 2 outputs. One is called MES, Similarity Index 1, and the Mahalanobis. These are just algorithms for calculating similarity. And areas you see on the green, those are very highly similar areas to our 2 reference points. And areas you see on brown, those are very low. The similarity is very low. So you can actually see if, for example, I was working in the 2 points, I can actually go southwards, and I have a lot of areas whereby I can upscale my technology. Gives a very nice view on where you need to go. Just in the interest of time, I will introduce statistics, but I'll just leave this one for you to try it yourselves. The statistics, now we've been able to calculate suitability, and we've also been able to calculate similarity. So, but now you need to ask yourself, you need to do some statistics, maybe to count the number of people living in a highly suitable area. Like you need to count like the number of people living in very high suitable areas, or number of people living in very low suitable areas. Maybe the person, as you as a user, you'd want to know, am I introducing my forage variety in a high populated area, or am I introducing my forage variety in a very low populated area? So here you need to have kept your outputs which you received via email, and that is what you need to upload here. What happens is the tool grabs your output, and it again recreates the classes as you see them on the right. So right now it is just remember, we are getting this this layer from a computer, so we are again republishing it there on the server, and again it takes a little bit of some time. Then after that, you need to choose your reference layers, what you need to calculate statistics for. So for example, I just mentioned some information on the cattle density, or for example, you need to calculate statistics on chicken. Maybe you need to calculate statistics even on annual precipitation. You need to understand what is the annual precipitation in the very high suitable areas for the particular technology. Or you just need to calculate your statistics on population density. You need to understand how many people are living in a medium suitable area. So that is it. So it is just uploaded. So you need to choose, for example, I'll just do statistics for the population density for cattle, for example. And again, statistics for, the goat density, just to understand the number of goats. And here, you can actually even choose the statistics to calculate. So, for example, here, I just choose a sum. Again, I told you, these are the classes generated from the layer we've been able to download. So 5 represents very high suitable areas. The target boundary, we can actually disaggregate the statistics up to a very low level. So if you have your national boundary, for example, in Kenya, you might be having the 47 boundaries. So you need to, if you want to report the statistics based on the 47 boundaries, you can also do that. But for now, that was it. Yeah. Then finally, Again, the results are available on your email. Again, you can actually download them once they are ready. This one runs very, very, very quickly. So for those who are just joining us, I'm now finishing the demo session, and immediately after this, we are going to hear from two people who've been able to use the tool, and you can actually see what they have been able to produce, just to give you a preview on what the tool is actually able to produce. This is your data. So I just click on download. And this one is available as a table. Remember, we chose these are our classes. These are our classes, and this is we just chose to do statistics for cattle density, which is CD, and the statistic we chose was sum, and the goat density, and the statistic we chose was sum also for that. You can add as many layers as possible. So for now, just you can actually see this class is one which is having lots of the numbers. So that is it. In the interest of time, I'll just move on, and you can just hold your questions. We'll have a Q&A after these two sessions. I'll move on and call in Sylvia to do a presentation.
Thank you, John. So you may project my PowerPoint from your side.
Okay.
So in the meantime, let me take this session to introduce myself. My name is Sylvia Kalemera. I work for the Alliance of Bioversity International and CIAT, based in Tanzania, and I support the area of M&E and GIS analysis. The work that I'm going to present, it's a work that the Pan-African Bean Research Alliance has done, and we had an intern who is also in this call as someone who was supporting us to do the pre-processing, because yeah, I had some other issues to handle by that time. So his name is Xavier Kigosi. Unfortunately, I might not be here till the end, but I will be able to answer questions that might come at the time that I'll be here. Okay, so this is a PABRA experience on using the targeting tool. Next. Maybe I just realized that some people could not be knowing what PABRA is. PABRA is a bean research program, which is working under the Alliance of Bioversity International and CIAT, and it works in 32 countries, where these 32 countries are being represented by the National Agriculture Research Institute in those countries. And PABRA network is divided into 3 networks, as you can see from your right map. That we have ICABRIN, SABRIN, and WECABRIN. So these networks have been divided looking at the agroecological zones and other things. So within these networks, that's where the bean research activities are taking place. Next. Yeah, so why did we decide to do the suitability mapping? As it has been already presented by the previous presenters, we have the climate which is changing, especially these days. Sometimes it's too dry, or the rains are too much, like the last year. So, and because we are doing the breeding activities, and some of our partners wants to intensify their production, then we decided to use the targeting tool for the purpose of identifying suitable areas within the area where we know that there is bean demand and there is, big markets, different actors are looking for that particular type of beans. And by so doing, we'll be able to maximize the effort in terms of putting up trials or doing seed and grain production. So we did the mapping. We mapped the current bean suitability, and this was conducted around August last year, 2019. And then we also did the future bean suitability analysis, and the data which was used was from the RCP 4.5 from the IPCC climatic scenario data. So we used the targeting tool extension in ArcGIS. Unfortunately, I didn't use the online. So this experience that I'm sharing is from the desktop, but it works more so like the online because I have tried it briefly. Next. So yeah, maybe this one should have came earlier. So PABRA, within the Pan-African Bean Research Alliance member countries, we have different bean markets, and these bean markets have high demand. If you look at the map on your right, there is on top we have beans which are red and speckled. We call them red mottled, and under we have the yellow beans. So we have been able to map where these beans are growing and where do they move. So we know that these beans are produced in this area and they are moving to this side, and there is a huge demand. We have grain traders who are looking for them. We have seed traders who are trying to produce seed in those areas. So for us as researchers, we want to improve, to help our farmers make these seed available to them. But in order to help them further, we also need to know where can these market types perform better, so as we save time and we do not use our time bad. So by so doing, we use the variety suitability tool to determine areas in the East Africa red mottled corridor and the yellow bean corridor where these two varieties can fit or perform better. And we know when we do this, this will accelerate the variety release, seed access, and seed adoption. And therefore, it will increase grain production and access, market access in the regional market. Next. So now zooming into specific those bean varieties, we have the red mottled. There is one variety which is very popular in East Africa. It has been released in 3 countries, Rwanda, Tanzania, and Burundi, and it falls within the East Africa red mottled corridor, as we call it. And it has different characteristics which are very important to farmers. It's a bush type. It is high iron, and the following are the threshold where it performs better in terms of temperature, rainfall, altitude, soil pH, carbon fertility, and growing period. So we zoomed into these 2 varieties because we know that they have high demand in the region, and other places in other countries, they are also coming up, but they are not yet released. So in case these other countries happen to release them, will this variety be suitable to those areas? Or maybe our breeders need to improve something in those varieties. Yeah. Next. So by so doing, we have different sources of data that I have not put here, but I have it just in case somebody wants to know where we sourced the data. And all the data that we used, we rescheduled them to 1 kilometer. And of course, we projected them into one projection system. And then we used the data targeting tool to determine bean suitable production areas. So we had the present, like current bean suitability. As you can see, the maps on your right, we have 2019 bean suitability, and then we have 2019-2030 bean suitability. And this was done for those two varieties that I mentioned. So the current bean suitable areas in those in the future, the current bean suitable area in the future, like in 2020, in 2030, showed it to be unsuitable, and because that was due to the change in temperature and rainfall that was noted. For example, if you look at, if you look at the down maps, the two maps which have borders, you can see the circled area. So this was done across Africa, not specifically for those countries, because we know that these varieties also other countries have interest. So for the sake of time, and because our work is also focusing in the region, so we decided to put all those countries together in case these countries want to release similar varieties. Are they suitable now? Where? Okay, if they are suitable now, will they be suitable in 10 years to come? So you can see from the blue, the down map, the one I'm talking about, on your left, you see that we see the suitable area in blue, but when we go to 2030, the very same variety, that area becomes unsuitable. So by using such results, we can inform breeders maybe on genetic improvement, because for us bean corridor, it is driven by color. So if it's red mottled, you find that it is driven by color. They could still retain the same color, but maybe improve it in terms of drought tolerance, or maybe rains and such. And at the same time, we think that our seed producers who are interested to produce similar seeds in those areas, this could be an important information to them to know if this variety can perform in this area, and maybe how will it be in 30 years. So together with the breeders, they can sit down and see how to what to expect for the future. Maybe the breeders to improve on that. Yes. Next. So maybe getting to the advantages, because I had explained that we use the desktop. We think it's very simple to learn. As you have seen, what you have seen on the online tool is almost the same as the one of the desktop. So it's very simple to learn, and it runs very fast. If you compare to other softwares that I have used, I think that one was really running fast. On the online, I might not have a very detailed experience, but I think that the online can save even the non-GIS people, as somebody had mentioned earlier. And because the data that is already there has been pre-processed, so that one reduces time and maybe saves costs, because for us, we had to get an intern to do this activity. So that is also an expense. But if you have it online and everything is processed and everything is projected, so it's easy to do it and saves time. So thank you. That's all I have. Thank you, John. Over.
Thank you very much, Sylvia. So if you have questions for Sylvia, just I'm sure she'll be leaving shortly, but you can just type in your questions if she sticks around, and we can forward, and then we can actually we can reply to that much later, because she had advised me that she'll be leaving at 11. So we'll move on to.
I have another meeting going on.
Okay. If you have any question, just type in there, then we'll be able to respond to each and every other question and send that through when we'll be sending the slides. So over to Wilson. Wilson, okay.
John, please share my screen.
I've given you access to share
Okay,
your...
okay, I've seen it. Okay, I've seen it. Okay. So I'm hoping everybody can see my screen, please.
Yes, we can see your screen very well.
Okay, okay, thank you. So I'm Wilson Guru, and I worked on this tool when I was predicting the future prevalence of pests and diseases affecting major food crops in Zambia. This was part of a project on climate vulnerability assessment of selected value chain commodities for the enhanced smallholder agribusiness promotion program in Zambia. In my site, I used both the online and I also used the desktop version of this tool. So this idea came from knowing that apart from having a lot of things which are being affected by climate change, and one of them being the production of food, we also realized that pests and diseases will be changing with climate change. And because pests and diseases are a major cause of yield losses, attributing to up to 40% of global crop yields, we saw that it would be very important to know their dynamics and distribution with climate change, because as we know that pests are usually affected very highly by temperature and also moisture availability. And this comes on because they are also vectors of some diseases. So they work hand in hand in causing losses to our food productivity. So knowing that these pests will be affected by climate change in a way that some pests will cease to exist while others will have an expanded area of activity, we saw it to be very important to predict the distribution in Zambia as we were working on climate vulnerability. So how did we do this? First of all, we had to select crop. This had been done for the project and it involved stakeholder participation, where they had selected groundnut, bean rice, soybeans, and cowpeas. Then after this, now we went to literature review to look at now which are the major pests and diseases affecting these very important major crops of Zambia. And this was done based on the occurrence as well as the impact on crop yields, which will also affect the economy. Then after obtaining the pests, we narrowed down to looking at the best thriving and environment of these pests. Remember, the pests and diseases were selected based on the importance in affecting the productivity and the yields of the seed crops. So we needed to have per crop we would be selecting at least one crop and at least one pest and at least one disease. Then we would go down to finding the data on the ranges or the thresholds for this pest, as in the best thriving environment, which now will be used for the modeling. And in this case, we obtained we tried to look at which variables would be best suited for modeling these pests. At first we considered temperature, relative humidity, and rainfall, but because of the limitation of finding this data, remember we were obtaining this data from literature review, and getting a lot of this information was very challenging, because I don't think a lot of people have delved into writing about the thriving temperatures of these small insects. So we were able to obtain the temperature and relative humidity, and from these now we had to go down And because we could not model all this that you can see as one for each and every pest and disease, so using the knowledge of the agroecological zones of Zambia, we were able to get a dividing temperature. And looking at the, because we have tropic cool, semi-arid, tropic cool, subhumid, and tropic warm, semi-arid, as well as tropic warm, subhumid, we thought it good or well to differentiate these, to have two groups based on those that thrive in the cool environment and those that thrive in the warm environment. Therefore, looking at the cool environment, the maximum temperature was around 25 degrees. So we used 25 degrees to divide the two groups. So we said group A will be the one for those which thrive in temperature which is lower than 25 degrees, and group B will be for the warm thriving pests. So we got two groups. Then we used the targeting tool, suitability tool, and now because we needed to have both temperature and relative humidity, we divided the relative humidity, looking at where do all these pests in group A fall. And so if you look at relative humidity, it will have like a similarity, but temperature is now divided in two groups. So we did this for periods 2030s and 2050s, and also for RCP 2.5, 4.5, and 8.5. And as you know, RCP representative concentration pathways, RCP 2.6 is when we are applying a lot of mitigations, climate mitigations, so that we can see the effects of climate change reducing, while RCP 4.5 is like a milder type of RCP 2.6. So the people are continuing with the pollution, but we are also having mitigations. While RCP 8.5 is just the continuing with the normal business, like we are not doing any mitigations, we are continuing with the pollution. So with these three scenarios, we went to looking for data. So temperature was taken because it highly affects these insects, because they are poikilothermic. Their body temperature varies with that of the environment. Well, high relative humidity is very important in the severity of pathogens. So because we had to use geospatial data, we downloaded the current scenario data from WorldClim, and we used the CIAT, the IPCC climate scenario data from CIAT climate portal. So as you know, it was so what they have there is temperature and rainfall. So we had to calculate relative humidity for all these periods, and we did that using a method developed by the Numerical Terradynamic Simulation Group at the University of Montana. I could share that if anybody is interested. So with this data, we used now the tool to calculate, to develop suitability for these pests and diseases for both groups and for periods 2030s and 2050s across all RCPs. So the results were like you can see. So for current suitability, you know, the southern Zambia is quite hot. So for group A, which is cooler, they kind of suit well on the upper part, and that, as you can see, they are spread across the country. But for group B, which is warm, they are more suitable for on the lower side of the country. So when we go to future scenarios, you can see we start with 2030s. 2030s is the period between 2021 and 2020 and 2029. So during this period, this is the same period as we are right now. So there won't be a lot of change in the dynamics of these pests. But as you can see for group A, it continued increasing. The suitability of this pest continued increasing towards the south, meaning the temperatures are increasing. But for group B, we can see the suitability increasing towards the north. This means that it becomes hotter. The cooler areas are becoming hotter. What about for RCP 4.5? It's almost similar to RCP 2.6. What about RCP 8.5? Also similar, but if you look at group B, because of increasing temperature, more pests which are suited for warm temperatures are now becoming more suitable. Will now become more suitable for the northern side, which is currently cooler. So what about for 2050s? Now 2050s, we're expecting that in RCP 2.6 and 4.5, because of the mitigation and the practices and technologies which are being done to mitigate climate change, we are expecting that now climate will be going back to what we have. So the northern part of Zambia should be cool and the southern part should be warm. So you find that the suitability will be decreasing from the northern for the group B and also from the south for group A. And similarly for RCP 4.5, but when you go to 8.5, because now this is just letting it be, you find that now the group A, because the climate is becoming warmer, the suitability is now reducing. As you can see, the area where these pests were not suitable is becoming more larger, like the stability is decreasing, going towards the northern of the country. When you look at group B, you can see now almost the whole country is becoming suitable for these pests. So in a nutshell, we can see that for group A, for the years 2030, that 2029, you can see the suitability decreased for group A because the country was becoming warmer. Then with the mitigation, it started now for between 2030 and 2050, RCP 2.6 and 4.5, it started becoming normal, like straightening. But for group B, you can see because now these are warm temperatures pests, the stability continued increasing for RCP 8.5, but for all periods. But for as a group A and for group B in RCP 4.5 and 2.6, at some point it started going back to normal. So what can we conclude from this? So we can conclude that climate change will result in increased distribution of pests that thrive in warm environments. And we've seen, you can see now that the areas will becoming more suitable for the warm environment, pests and diseases, as well as becoming less suitable for the pests that thrive in cool climate. That is in 2050s, because of the mitigations, 2.6 and 4.5 are becoming much better compared to 2030s, but for 8.5 it becomes more worse, but better for, because for cool climate pests are reducing, but warm climate pests are increasing. So this means that temperatures will lead in the shifting of species, the species shifting their geographical ranges to cooler climates, that is warm species, while the cool species will be becoming extinct or something like that. So thank you very much for listening. Back to you, John.
Thank you very much, Wilson. And thank you also very much. There are lots of questions which are coming in on the chat. We only have like 10 minutes to finish, so we'll try as much as possible to answer all. So I also need to mention that you for the people who are joining this call, we hope that you'll be able to contribute. If you happen to use this tool, you should. We encourage you to report use cases through that email you've seen over there. And for the ones who have involved themselves in development, and if you find any issue or any bug in, for example, in the online or the desktop version, you can report them as issues. We'll also be interested to, if you can request for features, we'll be happy to consider them. There are two questions. Simon asked about validation. Yes, it's possible to do the on-the-ground validation, but if you receive these types of maps, there are also other maps which are available online, like the yield maps, the physical area maps from MapSpam. You can do some quite of validation, or if you have like district level maps, you can actually validate the outputs from the suitability or similarity using those maps. Also, Solomon, you asked about the future incorporation of future data sets. Maybe I'll just point to you like what Sylvia has been able to present. You saw that she was able to project being suitability for the future in 2050. But also we haven't incorporated that in the web version, but we will be working on that to incorporate a few data sets, maybe on precipitation, on temperature into the system. But also, if you have data, if you have your own data stored somewhere, the application, like you'll see in the documentation, has capabilities for you can actually upload your own raster data into the web application, and you'll be able to conduct analysis. Also about David Wood asked about using fine type of data or very high resolution. Yes, we would not advise using global data to do subnational type of analysis, but if you have your very high resolution data, you can actually use that feature for uploading your data, and you again run through the same analysis. Christine, yes, I got your question on ongoing, like how we able to maintain the tool. Currently is supported through the CGI research program funds, but as an institution, we have a discussion on how to support and or to avail resources to these types of digital tools. Part of the tools also we are building are packages, so we also we are hoping to get support from the community to be able to continue the development. About the hosting, us as an institution, we are in discussion on how best to host these types of digital tools. Yes, those are the questions. Maybe we'll go back to the chat here to see if there's anyone else who has a question. You can just raise up your hand. Yes, also I need to follow up on the metadata. As it is right now, because maybe in the interest of time, I may not be able to project that, but yes, every other data set has been documented very well. But as it is right now, it might not be very user-friendly, the access, but we'll be able to write sources, every sources for all the datasets that we have on in the tool. Any question? Okay, so if there isn't any other question, Christine. Okay, just a minute. I'm not able to. Christine, do you have a question? You can go ahead. No. So maybe in the interest of time, we were able to utilize. You still have like five more minutes with the planned 1.5 hours. So if you still have any question, you can shoot it. But this webinar is being recorded, so you'll be able to receive the recording and also all the slides that were projected. They'll be sent to everyone who joined this call. So I would say thank you for joining. If you have any other question, or you want to reach through email, there is my email, and I would be happy to help, or the team will be happy to help where it can. Thank you, and thank you for joining.